Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Hightown. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there's a whole situation with Jackie. Obviously, like, her whole, like, treatment situation didn't go too well. Obviously, at first it seemed well, because she's like, hey, she's a couple days sober. She's kind of like, what they did, and it's interesting, because I've never heard this term before. Pink cloud, basically, it's like she's kind of on hot cloud nine, thinking, like, oh, it's so easy, like, how could other people, like, ever slip up and, relapse, because it's so easy to stay sober. It's like, yeah, this is your first time getting sober, and you think it's going to be such an easy thing when it's not. And obviously, because at first, her and Bethany were talking about, like, oh my God, this is what Tina is like, yo, but like, you had Jackie want to holler at her, and then Bethany is like, no, I put hours into that. I called dibs. She's like, fuck dibs. Hits it off with Tina. They do their thing. Bethany was pissed about that. Jackie being who she is, talking mad shit during the meeting and stuff like that. Bethany's like, oh, like, she's relapsed before, so it's like, how dare Jackie come here talking all this shit. Fist fight. Bethany got kicked out, but the doctor is talking to Jackie, and we kind of get a little insight into everything about, like, it's like, oh, like, your relationship with sex and women. It's like, yeah, I love sex and women, but it's like, do you ever have a meaningful relationship? And she brings up someone named Devon. Basically, it's like, for her, it's like, I wanted everything she wanted, like, to think of, like, the house and kids type of situation, but it's just like, for her, it's like, she said my drinking had nothing to do with it, but then she was like, okay, it had a little bit to do with it, but she's like, it wasn't all that it was. She's like, basically, like, it's just a situation where I guess, like, she was like, I just turned into, like, she didn't go into the ins and outs of it, but it's like, all she said was like, yeah, I loved her, and now she hates me. I just, she's like, I was a shithead or something like that. And I was like, I'm assuming we'll kind of dive into that. But even the whole thing about her dad, too, where it's like, yeah, her dad kind of, like, and the doctor's like, oh, it almost sounds like you talk about your dad like you admire him. It's like, why would I admire him? He cheated on my mom back then. She probably still cheats on her now. And it's like, I don't know why anyone would hook up with him with his 9 fingers or something like that. And she's like, do you think you're a lot like your dad? And she's like, I'm nothing like him. And obviously it's that thing of like, oh, you joke when you get uncomfortable. It's kind of like her defense mechanism, which once again, it's easy to recognize in other people, because it's like, hey, that's a flaw I have. I have a tendency to deflect, serious shit with my own jokey, defense mechanism. But nevertheless, and it's interesting too, because immediately Jackie ends up looking at, like, she ends up, like, just cleaning up because she's in trouble because, of, the fight and everything. And so she's on clean up dude for like a week, but then she sees Krista's picture, and it didn't click in my. I was like, oh, well, even if she sees Krista's picture, why would she correlate that to Sherry? Then she sees the, love you like a sister necklace. And I was like, oh, never mind, clear cut that. And it's like, wait, what? She asked Tina a little bit about Krista, and she brings this up to the doctor, like, hey, like, Krista, I think she's in danger and stuff like that. And I thought it was interesting because the doctor's bringing up the thing of like, okay, it's nice that you want to look after Krista and stuff like that, especially if this is connected to Sherry and everything. But the fact of the matter is, you're just fixating on this, because that was always my biggest. I think that's the biggest question kind of going into this. Why the hell does Jackie care so much? It's like, yeah, I mean, it's something traumatic. It's like, you saw this dead person and everything. I get it. Obviously, she was having that nightmare of seeing her body, and obviously Krista being there, so it's almost like her dreams are trying to tell her something. But for her, she's thinking like, oh my God, like, maybe I found that body on purpose. Maybe I was meant to do it. Maybe I was meant to solve her murder. Maybe I was meant to, like, protect Krista. But it's like a thing of like, you're kind of like looking for anything to kind of fix on. Like, I think it's a thing of like, it's almost like someone who has just quit smoking, who just constantly has to put like a toothpick or something in their mouth, that like they have to roll something around their fingers to make it to simulate a cigarette just because they have that itch. It's like that same thing. She's trying to like feel that itch that she has. So it's like she needs to fixate on something so she doesn't focus too much on herself. But obviously Jackie's like, I don't need this bullshit. She bounces. Not the best decision, and it's like the doctor's like, oh, you're going to end up relapsing soon enough. But it's just like, for now, she's fixated on solving this. But that is a big thing of like, why is it so important to her? Is it simply because she is like, because obviously we've only taken steps towards kind of knowing who Jackie is, kind of learning a little bit about her background and everything, kind of seeing a little bit of the situation she came from. Obviously, like I said, we was talking about earlier, like her dad's cheating and stuff like that. That's about it. But maybe we'll learn a little bit more and kind of, because even like it seemed, like I said, even the drinking thing, it seems like for her it's like, oh, that was a thing even back then with Devon, and even she's like, oh, it wasn't an issue, but it was enough of an issue for her to be like, I mean, it wasn't the only reason why we had issues. So it's like, so it's not like this is like a recent thing. Like obviously, it's something that's spurred up in her life even back then, and probably the only like real relationship she's had, because everything else has just been kind of like a one night stand, just kind of hit it and quit it type of situation. So she's talking to Junior, which we saw Junior in an earlier in episode because he shows up at the prison that Frankie's at because he's giving speeches of like, I guess it's kind of like basically it's Alcoholics Anonymous, kind of like almost like an outreach program of like they go to prisons to talk to people and stuff like that. And Frankie's talking to him about like, oh, like, aren't you supposed to be the boat guy? He was like, yeah, it was like basically like it was a super moon, the tides were weird and stuff like that. So he's like, but obviously it also set up some interesting stuff to show that like Frankie and Junior have actually worked together for a long time. He's like, yeah, like I used to do stuff for you and you paid me and everything. He was like, I didn't care too much when I was high, but now it's different. Like, because now it's some shit of like, this was a girl's dead body, dude. It's like, it took, because also like he's sober now. So like he has especially because he's in a position where he's trying to fix his life. He's trying to get back with his baby mama, be there in his his daughter's life, I think, or his child's life. I want to say it's his daughter, because he said it last episode. He probably brought up this episode. I'm not remembering, but nevertheless, it's a situation of like he's trying to, and it's just like he's like, oh, I'm done, and I'm like, Frankie doesn't seem like the type of dude that when you say you're done, he just lets you go, especially because you know too damn much. So it's like, what's stopping you from ratting to the cops or something like that? I mean, granted, he has his own involvement in the whole thing, but that's what kind of gets me thinking, like, Frankie doesn't seem like the type of dude that just kind of lets shit go like that. But we'll see. But because obviously I guess this is the most like heavily criminal, like obviously he's done criminal shit for Frankie in the past, but I think this is the most like on the more homicide side of things of him doing that, handling, being on that side of things. And obviously when Jackie starts first bringing this up to him, he was like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like he tried to deter her away from it because obviously all this Sherry stuff is eventually going to come back to him. Yes, he had nothing to do with her murder, but he basically helped dispose of her body. So, and especially, like I said, because he's got his entire future riding on hell. I'm skipping around a little bit, but obviously, like, after Jackie kind of found out what she found out about later on, we see, like, her show up at Junior to talk to him about it. He's like, yeah, come inside, we'll talk about it a little bit. It's like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, this is your friend you're talking about. Are you going to hurt her? Or are you just going to find out what she knows so that you can try and get ahead of her in this situation? Because it's like, once again, it's like he's trying to piece his life back together after everything. So it's like, is he going to let Jackie threaten that? Or are you going to threaten or hurt your friend? I mean, can't really come too clean about like what you've been up to, your involvement in all of this. So there's that side of things. There's the whole situation with Ray. Obviously, him and Alan learn Osito's name from one of their other, CIs. And obviously it turns into a situation of Ray going, well, first and foremost, it's weird, Ray literally using sex talk between Frankie and Renee as masturbation material. I was like, that's weird. You're literally at your office because you close the blinds and lock the door too. I'm like, that's major. You're using evidence to kind of jack off and you're doing it at work. That's all kinds of wrong. But nevertheless, he goes to Renee and he's like, oh, like, the fact is, Frankie ain't really doing nothing for you. The fact of the matter is, like, you've been sober for 5 years. So it's like, the fact is, if he was really taking care of you, you wouldn't have to be stripping like you are. So it's like, let me help you. The moment Frankie goes down, I get it. All his, like, because his, all his money was frozen. So it's like, obviously, she has to make ends meet on her own. But it's like, you can have a completely fresh start because what's going to happen the moment Frankie goes down, like, you will never get access to any of that money anyway. So help us take him down so you can basically be completely free of this life and kind of, live your own life. So it turns into that. And so he has her meet with another cop and she's undercover. Like, that undercover cop, is it me? I kept looking, I was like, I recognize her, I'm just not 100% sure. I want to say that's the actress who played Jessica in Timeless. I swear it is, but I feel like it might be something else I know her from. But I think that's the actress who played Jessica in Timeless. Regardless, you have them kind of doing their setup on Osito, but it doesn't work because he's very like paranoid because it's like Like, who is this chick? Who's this random chick you brought into my vehicle in this meeting, Renee? It's like, oh, you getting high again? Like, what if Frankie found out? It's like, he won't know if you don't say anything. Deal didn't go through, but once again, Ray's in that weird place because afterwards it's like, yeah, but you still did a good job. You want to go get something to eat? Basically, it's basically because it kind of like the job's gonna like pay for it, and she's like, oh no, I'm like. Once again, you crossing those boundaries. Hell, even that cop, she calls him out for it later on, because she's basically saying that he's kind of got like a save a hoe like complex. So, and she's like, I didn't need saving. So it was like, what the hell was that all about? Like, because like she could kind of see the writing on the walls of like, oh yeah, you're kind of like in that lane. Like, I guess she sees the way he looks at Renee, and I guess it's like it's a story that maybe it's just her, or maybe she's seen him do this countless times before. Maybe it's just kind of like he's almost got a little bit of a hero complex of like, oh yeah, like here's some, once again, save a host thing of like, oh yeah, here I am, I can save you, I can bring you out of this darkness, essentially. I can, take care of you and your son, like just give me the chance. It's just kind of like, are you in love, are you into someone just because, oh, you like them as a person, or is he really into Renee just because it's like, oh, this is someone I can be her knight in shining armor, and is it just about making yourself feel good about yourself to make yourself feel like the hero, Stuff like that, I think, is kind of interesting. I was really surprised when Osito showed up at her place, and I was like, oh, did he know that was an undercover cop? But it's like, no, he's bringing it up because he's like, yo, Frankie, asked me to look after you, because it's like, how long have you been doing drugs again and stuff like that. So it's interesting because at first he makes it seem like, oh, like you said, Frankie's not here, so I'm gonna pay for a lap dance and everything. But then it turns out, oh, it's him looking out for Frankie's best interest. Because once again, it's like, because, I mean, obviously he did everything for Frankie. So, like, I think he's afraid of Frankie. So it's like, oh, I'm not going to piss off Frankie. So Frankie asked me to do something, look after you. You're his baby, you're the mother of his child and everything. So, of course, like, I'm going to look after you and stuff like that. Obviously, Renee kind of twisted to make it go like, oh, yeah, the reason why I do stuff is to take the edge off because some dude has me and her, what was her name? Leslie? Was that it? Have me and her kind of do some girl on girl stuff. So I do drugs to take the edge off. You want to tell, Frankie that I'm doing that. You can, the drugs or that, just to make ends meet. She kind of almost says basically what Ray had said to her earlier. Oh, Frankie ain't doing shit for me. It's interesting because she kind of, in her lie, she kind of took those words and kind of used it. Obviously, Ray saw Osito's truck there. And then later on, when he confronts Renee about it, he's like, I need to know. And it's like, oh, for Renee, it's like, oh, we were kind of hitting it off. Like, oh, I thought you were friendly. I thought you were different. But now I see basically you're like every other person in my life trying to use me. So she's like, I didn't say anything to Osito because if I did, I'd be dead. But it's interesting because she's in this complicated thing because she's like lying to everybody. Because obviously she's lying to Frankie about everything that, when she only told him a fraction, like only like half of the stuff about, half of the stuff about Ray. Then like Osito, she completely lies to him, and obviously Ray, she hasn't told him everything. Like, cause she could, I mean, I guess if she was in a better mood, if Ray hadn't pissed her off, she could have been like, you actually lied to him. So I actually put us in a good enough position where if situation called for it, we could kind of come at this from a different angle, maybe. But Ray pissed her off because obviously he's become like obsessive, just kind of like, it's like, oh, because obviously this case is so important, because he's talking about this simply being a thing of like, oh, he's trying to get justice for Sherry because he's like, oh, I'm gonna protect you, and she's like, oh, is that what you said to Sherry before Sherry ended up dead? So it's like, it's kind of Renee's in this, lose-lose situation. So she's like, fuck it, Ray, we're done, so we'll see kind of where things kind of end up going on that front. Some other interesting things went down. Ed ended up kind of telling Jackie that apparently like this case of hers isn't going to go her way, that basically her boss is kind of looking to get her fired from it, but she's like, oh, he can't do that, and but it doesn't look good from her. I'm still curious to see if we're going to see any more about like the lady she hooked up with, because like obviously it's going to turn into like a lawsuit type of situation, so I'm curious to see like that awkward situation when they meet face to face again. I kind of expect that. Maybe they won't ever tackle that necessarily. I feel like with everything going on, that would make perfect sense to do that. But I mean, who knows? We'll have to, wait and see what the rest of the, season has in store. Whether that will become something we'll see more of or not. But obviously, it's interesting because obviously Jackie's like doing like a little cyber stalking, trying to track down where Krista is. We even saw Krista try to go home, but her mom wouldn't let her because it's just her past and everything. She's like, I'm sober 42 days, mom. This is just where I need to be. She's like, you need to get out of here before so and so finds out you're here. So it's like for Krista, she's on the run because she knows because no one knows that she was there, but she can't take the chances, like because she saw Sherry die. So it's like, a target's on her back for seeing, Sherry die. So with all that in mind, though, she, kind of has to go off on her own. And obviously, Jackie ends up talking to the lady at the bar, and it turns out like her nephew, who we met last episode, was his name Ronnie. Apparently, he's bragging about like, oh, he knows Sherry because he used to like deliver to her, not her specifically, but I think her drug dealer, I think is what that whole thing is. Which even Jackie was like, yeah, he needs to kind of shut his mouth because obviously Sherry is dead. You go running your mouth like, oh, people like that. It's like, that's probably going to end up getting you super dead fast, Not drinking, but Jackie still finds herself with the one night stand, and I love she's waking up and the lady next to her is snoring and everything, and it's like, oh, you got any plans today? And she's like, no, because like basically Jackie went all detective like, using her detective training, even though is what Junior kind of refers to her as a fish cop. But despite all that, she kind of, is able to kind of piece a lot of stuff together through social media and stuff like that, knowing exactly a means of kind of being able to track down Krista. And she's like, okay, you got any plans for this? She's like, no, you? It's like, well, I'm asking, because she has no car, so she's asking the woman she like had a one night stand with to drop her off somewhere. And it's like, wait, you sure this is what you got to do here? Don't worry about it, I'll call you later. She's like, oh yeah, sure. I'm like, part of me, I mean, granted, it could have happened in between the scenes, but I'm like, did you actually get her number before you said like, oh, I'll call you? I was like, I don't know. And she was just kind of like, okay, probably not going to happen, we'll see. But she goes in there, oh yeah, I'm a friend of Ronnie, I knew Sherry. And the lady's just like, oh yeah, can you hold my baby? I'm like, yeah. Here, a total stranger that claims to know some people I know, but just randomly showed up at my place. Here, hold my baby while I smoke. And then like one dude walks out. He's like, what the hell? Are you a cop? You a wired on something? She's like, no. Okay. Jackie made sure to get the hell out of that situation quickly. But what she kept noting was the fact is that the friend had on Krista's earrings. So it's like, you said she wasn't here, but then like you're like, oh, she was here, I forgot about it. But then the dude was like, no, she ain't been here, you lying. So it's like, but the question then becomes like, well, why the hell are they lying about where Krista is? Because I guess Krista made them promise like, yeah, if someone comes around asking about me, say you don't know. I am curious, like, I think when it's all said and done, I was saying all that earlier, but now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't think Junior is going to do anything to Jackie. What I think he's going to do is he's going to pump her for information about Krista and probably give that information to Frankie because it's all about self-preservation. It's like, yeah, he doesn't want to get mixed up in this, but basically his entire life is going to get destroyed. Like I said, because he's, him and, his baby mama, Donna, like things are good. They're better. It's like, things are kind of heading in a good direction. He's better. So it's like, once again, his whole life will come, end up imploding if he doesn't do something about it. So he might be basically responsible. Like, at least with Sherry, yes, he disposed of the body, but he had nothing to do directly with her murder. Krista might be a different situation, because that's why I'm like, because it would have to be, because it's like, how else are they going to find out about Krista? Krista's just like on her own. No one knows she was there. Only people who know are Jackie and Junior now. Obviously, she called Ray. She didn't say anything on the message, but telling Ray to call her back. Because that is the thing of like, you are investigating this yourself, like, especially considering you're literally in a position to lose your job. But like, at no point did you decide to call Ray. To be fair, in the first interaction with Ray, you're kind of like, he's an asshole. So maybe that makes you a little reluctant. But at the last second, you're like, yeah, okay, I need to bring him into the fold on this situation, because obviously it's a dangerous situation. This is about protecting someone. So it's like, she can't 100% solo it. Especially, that was before she ended up going to that house, and things could have gotten nasty that way. But, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.